What's one of life's biggest traps that people fall into? You got to be your own advocate. If you think other people will fix the problems you have, you're gonna have a bad time. And it is okay to say no. I work in a nursing home, and it's absurd the amount of people that I've seen burn themselves out because they feel obligated to pick up extra shifts or come in early, leave late when they're asked. You don't need a reason or excuse to say no. Also take your allowed breaks at work. Take that time to decompress and your mental health will be better for it. I just say that I'm taking my break. I've stopped actually asking if it's okay. It makes it harder for anyone to object. This is especially true for anything healthcare related. Thinking too much of what others think of them or how they are perceived. I think this goes along with self-esteem, but I started feeling a lot better about myself when I let go of the fear of judgment. Thinking that you're running out of time to do something because someone else has done it already. I could absolutely shred guitar licks of all genres at age 17. I could play literally everything lead guitar wise. 10 a day practice sessions for 9 years and sacrificed grades, social life, and all that comes with that. I gave it up when I heard Steve Vai live. It crushed me. Try as I might, there was no way I could do what he was doing. I couldn't get over it. Decades later, I realized I made a huge mistake. I was good, and my entire philosophy was based on something outside of myself that I couldn't control. Don't make this mistake. Do you and put it out there because you like it? Had this happened today, I was at a blacksmithing class, and I was really struggling with tapering the rod. I watched everyone else finish and progress to the next step, and some even finished, so I assumed time was running out, and I was fucked. I had another hour and a half. Never letting go of the past, that can kill you, I swear. Or more specifically, how things that happened have hurt. Letting go of the pain. It's not always easy, but it is a trap. Some memories, traumas will stick with you throughout your entire life, but you can manage the way you react to them. What I have learned is to embrace that miserable feeling you get when you remember and to let it pass. Do not run, face it, and your brain will adapt to the feeling and will slowly process the memory and put it to rest. Marrying or living with or otherwise committing to someone who is mean to you and doesn't treat you well. Sleepwalking into marriage or living together because it's time or nothing is really wrong. It's just not right. I've seen it unfold way too many times. And I'm 43, and the first wave of divorces, second wave of marriages is in full swing. And while the window dressing differs on each of them, there are underlying realities in all the ones that don't work out. Also marrying or getting in a relationship with someone just cause they don't want to be lonely or it's a social pressure. I have a friend whose her EF pressured her to get married, but they broke up because my friend weren't ready. He then found another person to marry, and I asked my friend why her ex was desperate to get married, and she said it's cause his friends are all married, so he didn't want to be the only one who wasn't. What a bizarre thinking, but unfortunately, it's a norm nowadays. I have another friend who was never single ever since he was 18 years old, and I asked him why. He said he didn't want to be lonely and have to face all the feelings. Sounds unhealthy as hell. Lifestyle creep, feeling the need to upgrade cars, houses, jewelry, etc. to keep up with your peers. Yes, lifestyle inflation is how people earning 100 a year life paycheck to paycheck. Not just that, Uber-Eats, Grab food, Uber itself, buying shit from the gas station convenience store at markup. The slow creep of convenience is what slowly puts people's expenses up. Sunk cost fallacy. Came to say this too. I stayed at a job for too long because I already put so much time and effort into it, even though the salary was crap. I finally had enough and decided to leave, and I'm doing so much better financially, emotionally, physically. It's been 5 years since I left, and sometimes I think what my life would be had I stayed, and it's just depressing. Looking back, leaving was one of my best decisions. Seriously underrated comment. Sometimes you just have to walk away. Doesn't matter what you've invested. The longer you stay, the more you will lose. This is true for relationships, bad jobs, houses and cars you are constantly repairing, the go-kart in your garage. Sometimes you're better off leaving behind the memories and the emotional and financial investments and just starting again from scratch. It's never easy, but it's something we all have to do eventually. Let it go. Doing nothing because of fear of rejection. Or its cousin, doing nothing because doing something limits your options. Fear. living in fear. It's so easy to do for large swaths of your life and not even realize. Talking 10 years. Never doing that thing you've always loved and been sort of good at. Never realizing you're just too scared to really try. Just because you have spare money at the end of the month doesn't mean you need to spend it. Look at this guy with spare money at the end of the month. Putting things off. We could do it more as kids because someone was there to pick up the slack or stay on top of you to get something done. But as an adult, the consequences of waiting on stuff slaps you hard. Thank you, I was looking for this. A lot of windows open in life, only to shut forever behind you once they've passed. And on top of that, you're also going to die one day. Seize the moment while you have it, because once it's gone, it's gone. I guess what I'm trying to say is, lol, YOLO. Caring what others think. You should to some extent, but doing it too much just destroys your self-worth and turns you into someone you are not. I get what you mean, and I agree with the sentiment. I'd reword it though to judging yourself by what others think, because caring about what others think is a good thing. That's basic empathy, but letting them tell you how to feel about yourself is definitely a bad place to be. Waiting too long for perfect, like the perfect soulmate, house, job, etc., and then letting too many good opportunities pass by. I have heard so many stories from people who have achieved the highest levels of success, only to fall into the deepest depression of their life when they realized that even reaching their highest goals didn't fill that piece inside of them that was missing. It's like how any sports team that wins a championship is just grinding again at it the next year. Not saying that pursuing lofty goals isn't worth it, but as the saying goes, it's about the journey and not necessarily the destination. Perfect is the mortal enemy of good enough. Also, done is better than perfect. Not knowing how to use credit cards right. Edit. Didn't know this was gonna go crazy. I do have a YouTube video on how they can help and hurt you. Heps. Spend $5,000 and pay back minimum balance, $10. No. I work for a credit card company and I came here to say credit. I speak to people daily in debt they'll never get out of, and that's one of their credit cards. Letting other people define success for them rather than defining it for themselves. Theoretically, yes. But that's not how most humans work. Success is a social thing, always in relation to social constructs and others. It's in our nature to see it that way. We can modify a bit, but tough to change. Cats showing their belly. Working a job you hate because it pays well, but you're miserable. Also on the flip side of that, quitting a job you hate and then falling into the trap of self-isolated comfort and not working. Debt, regret, fear. Fear of regret is what ruined me with debt. Spending more because you're earning more. For me, this one cuts both ways. Now that I'm making good money, I can afford to spend more on quality things. Recent example. 2 years ago, I bought a $250 electric snowblower. I lasted 2 years. I could have bought another, but instead decided to spend significantly more on a high-quality gas-powered snowblower that will likely last me decades. If you're buying lots of junk, you don't need though. Yeah, just don't. Picture this. Your manager pulls you aside and asks you to do a little extra work. You want to move up in the company. You like your job. You say yes. Your manager says thank you too much for doing this. I see great things in your future. Keep up the good work. We're watching and we don't know what we'd do without you. Next week, your manager pulls you aside and asks you to do a little extra work. You want to move up in the company. You like your job. You say yes. Your manager says thank you too much for doing this. I see great things in your future. Keep up the good work. We're watching and we don't know what we do without you. Next week, your manager pulls you aside and asks you to do even more extra work. You want to move up in the company. You like your job. You say yes. Your manager says thank you too much for doing this. I see great things in your future. Keep up the good work. We're watching and we don't know what we'd do without you. You keep doing all this extra work and taking on all these extra responsibilities that they'd normally have a supervisor or manager do, but you're doing all this extra work at your base pay, which to them is for free. Please realize they have no intention of promoting you if you're doing a ton of extra work for them and they aren't compensating you for it. Then it's time for a raise and all they can focus on is the one time something wasn't perfect. Excuse me, there were 200 other days of work you had no issue with. Getting married to having kids because they think they have to, not because they actually want to. Having an elaborate, expensive wedding that does nothing but stress everyone out and bankrupt you. Procrastination. Tomorrow is always the busiest day of the week. Procrastinating. Entrusting yourself to short-term benefits whilst shunning long-term goals will only serve to aid your downfall. The consequences to our actions can't be avoided forever. Imposter syndrome. The cure is eventually realizing no one has a clue. Payday loans. Multi-level marketing. Someone got me to go to a seminar, and the rhetoric was what a lot of people want to hear about themselves for validation. One of the biggest traps in life is not picking yourself up after a failure, letting yourself go and sinking to the bottom. Depression will sink in and you'll start to lose everything. Extremely heartbreaking when you see someone you loved through this. They will stop caring and become suicidal because they feel there is nothing left to live for. When in reality they still are alive, and that's all that matters. The world isn't better with less people. It's better with people who adjust and live for the better. Toxic relationships. People do them to try and fix people, but they just end up getting themselves hurt. Alcoholism and drug abuse. Eventually getting high stops being fun, but you can't stop because your body is physically dependent on it. It sucks. Always staying in your comfort zone. Having kids be society said they should. Nothing against kids, parents, etc., but the pressure to have kids is immense from family and/or religion in most areas, cultures. More often couples have to explain why they chose not to or couldn't have having kids to save their marriage.